Maharashtra, there are villages where men marry multiple women because they become their water wives. So, because it's a woman's responsibility to collect water. So, as the woman ages, she can't carry as much water, right? Typically, a woman is carrying 40 to 45 liters of water. Each hand is about 20 liters. And she's carrying that over a distance of 5 to 6 or even 10 kilometers, depending on where the village is located. Now, as she ages, she cannot carry so much. So he marries another woman to carry the water, so that the senior wife can have a junior wife to help with carrying water.
There's also this another kind of gender equality coming in now, which is the digital gender inequality, right? So like my domestic help, she does not have a smartphone, and even if she does have, she would get a second-hand phone from the husband or something. She's not allowed to have, let's say, a Facebook on it. She's not allowed to share her picture or put her DP on the WhatsApp and things like that. So there's another oppression of women and their expression. The husband, who's probably earning 3 times less than what she is, enjoys all the privileges.
India has amongst the lowest female labour force participation rates in the world even today.
Although we are doing better in the leadership role.
Because there's a regulation which says that you have to have at least one woman on your board. So all registered companies have to have a woman in their board, which is one of the reasons why they have to build a pipeline of women, coming up to the board level. We all need beauticians. I love my beauticians. But at the same time, don't we want women to also become plumbers? Don't we want women to become electricians? Don't we want women to become truck drivers? We want a society where women can do any job, not just a job that's appropriate for them.
The city like Delhi that has a population of about 42 million and nearly 45% of that is female, right? And you have cases in hundreds of thousands. It's just negligible.
Moving towards public transport instead of using personal vehicles. This is a very important shift which can create immediate results, especially when it comes to pollution. The sari I'm wearing today is probably a silk sari woven by a traditional, weaver somewhere in Tamil Nadu. That lady will not know how to sell this sari on Amazon or on Flipkart or on any other, service. As an Indian going into the British Parliament and getting the award there, I had goosebumps.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Journey Within podcast with me, Shobha Rana. This is a podcast where we steer conversations about our inner world. We delve into these conversations to understand our inner world better. There are 2 lives that we live at all points. One is in the outer world, the external lives, where we have a name, an identity, a financial status, a relationship status, the car that I drive, the address that I have, and a bunch of things associated with us. But there's also an inner world where the processing of how my outer world feels to me happens. Now, irrespective of what my life looks like from the outside, this inner translation, this inner dialogue, this journey within is extremely important because it determines my experience and my quality of life. So through our guests, through their stories, through the work that they do, we try to understand that how they process things and how can this processing happen for the better so that it starts working for us. Instead of putting me, my mood, my emotional health and mental health on a downward spiral, how can we derive passion or let's say inspiration or purpose. I'm very happy to share that the guest on my today's show is an economist. She passed out of London School of Economics and came back to our home country to cause the impact and change that she felt the world needed the most. She is founder of Nikore Associates, that is a youth-led think tank that works in the space of gender equality, and steering these conversations, those are much needed, especially at this point in time. Please welcome with me today, Mitali Nikore.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming up, Mitali, on this podcast. First of all, are you well rested? How many hours of sleep do you get in a day?
So, to be very honest, Shobha, I think currently I'm doing about 5 hours of sleep every night. And I think as we were talking before, it's important to be conscious of the fact that we are all pushing ourselves. And as type A personalities, we are constantly pushing ourselves. But I have taken a New Year resolution that this year I'm going to increase the average hours of sleep from 5 to 6. For sure. 2023, I'm going to get 6 hours of sleep every day.
That is such a wonderful goal to have. And I like the fact that you made it sustainable for yourself. You're not saying that I want to aspire for 8-9 hours of sleep, which could be a long shot from here. But you are aiming for a very doable, approachable and sustainable goal for yourself. I'm so proud of that fact. And the recognition of this fact that we do need to have more rest
Yes.
to propel better in our
Absolutely.
day-to-day life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mitali, you work with governments, you work with policymakers, you are constantly between these conversations. Those are going to build a future, not just for us, for our future generations, for the world tomorrow, right? So, I want to firstly talk about gender equality, because this is one topic that I think as a female, especially as a female, it's something that we have had our sort of, episodes with it. And I think a topic as sensitive as this comes, or at least starts for you from a personal story. So what's your story there? Why do you want to take up this conversation of gender equality?
So, as you said, Shobha, it's always a personal experience that, triggers it. And it's a trigger of the consciousness of you being a woman, and therefore your social status being different from that of a man. So, very seriously, I'm an only child. My parents can't differentiate or discriminate because I'm the only child. And I saw it as I was growing up that, my mother was always asked, oh, aren't you going to have another child? Aren't you going to try for a son? And she would always shoot back in her, classic manner. And when you just have this really strong mother figure in your life who just tells everyone to sit down and keep their, voices down. She's the kind of person who can do that. I've learned to do it from her. And she would just say, no, this is my daughter, my child, my pride, and all of you just see what she's going to do. And I think that was one trigger, the first trigger. Second trigger happens, when you start going to school and college and you start interacting with boys and you start seeing how they're treating you differently, how the standards are so different for you as they are for boys. Especially I feel when you're a teenager, there's a lot of peer pressure. Peer pressure to look good. And I can share some of my photos when I was younger. I was 95 kgs. So it took a lot of effort for me to look the way I'm looking right now. But at that time, as a teenager, when you're not that good looking or sought after, then you feel your, self-esteem declining, and you feel that, oh my God, am I as good as these other good looking girls? So you work hard in other areas, and as a result, I became academically...
You try to overcompensate in other areas and show that, I exist.
I exist, and you try to visualize yourself and verbalize yourself, and that's how I got into public speaking, academia, and extracurricular activities. And then, of course, in personal relationships also, you have these, the third trigger for me was, of course, a relationship where I felt that my partner was not treating me as an equal, where he felt that he deserved certain privileges just because he was a man. And that was the final trigger, I think, where, you just realize that that's it. Now, if I don't speak up for it, there will be other women, other girls who will keep on going through this cycle and perpetual cycle of being treated less than.
And it's no less than an abuse to rob you of your talent, to rob you of what you can create,
Absolutely.
How you see the world. All that is changing or is made to change because other people don't want to accept your caliber, your talent, or see you as just an individual. So this whole individualization of a human being, the concept that is now taking the center stage, that is now taking the light, thanks to people like you and other people who are working in the space of gender equality. Tell me why and how this has become such an important conversation. Of course, some bit of it you have already shared. But where does corporate India, draw that line of this gender equality and how they are becoming more sensitive to incorporating this in their, or is it just the talks? that we see at forums, fancy conversations with glasses of wines in your hand, and you talk about equality, you talk about inclusion, but inside the closed doors, it is again a man's ego or a man-led career versus thinking less of a woman.
I think we're in a flux today. We're in a flux of different influences coming over corporate India.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. It's a very interesting time to be alive, isn't it?
Yeah. Totally.
So, but just coming back to, there's the personal fight, but then you also see how that personal individual fight, and you talked about individualism. Our culture, the Indian culture, is not an individual-led culture. It's a community-led culture. We always put the community first. We always put the family first. Now, when we put the family first, someone has to make sacrifices. And that person making sacrifices is often the woman, because she's the one sacrificing her career for the unpaid work that she does in the house. She's the one sacrificing her ambition so that her husband can get that promotion that he's getting at work, so that she takes a step back, he increases the hours.
And it's unfortunate that a lot of contribution that we credit to comes from the financial support that you can bring to the home.
Precisely.
If you're bringing in all kinds of support in terms of nurturing a family, in terms of taking care of everyone else, in terms of ensuring that everything runs the way it does, but you're not paid for it, so you are seen as a less of individual in the whole ecosystem.
And that is the basic nature on which a lot of our economies have been built. In my recent paper, I actually call it building India's economy on the backs of women's unpaid work. Because for so many decades, we have not seen any change in that gender division of labor within the house. So now coming back to the corporate sector, and why this gender division of labor matters is because at the end of the day, if the CEO is a man, he is accustomed to the fact that his wife is going to be working at home. She's going to be at home. He thinks that the rest of his team also should function in the same way. That's why we need interventions to correct these structural biases. We need these, initiatives to correct these unconscious biases that leadership may have. That, what is the role of a woman? Because the role of a woman in society is inextricably linked to her role in the organization. And that's why we have to keep on working with different generations of leadership, management, and even new recruits to keep changing their, mindsets. The other thing is there a credibility, right? Are corporates really, really committed to this? In my experience, definitely there are some corporates who are very committed. And they have put in place institutional mechanisms to correct these structural biases. Others, definitely, it is about wine, and it is about, making a whole pomp and show of it instead of actually taking action. And to those organizations, I just have to say, you will not remain sustainable or viable or relevant.
That's very important.
To Gen Z and to Gen Alpha as they're coming in, because we know, having interacted with Gen Z, they don't take any kind of nonsense.
We also started, women like you, women like me, we also started questioning these norms at some level. But I think we really are the last generation that is accepting somewhere this whole bias and stuff. And I'm so glad that change is coming in. And it's not only from the perspective of just being a more inclusive community. It is also from a perspective of bringing in more relevant ideas.
Absolutely.
The more diversity you have in the group, the more brilliant ideas and the more newer ideas could come. Okay. Like as a man, you could have absolute zero, awareness of the things that operate, let's say, in a woman's world, or in someone who is a non-binary. That idea might not ever strike you, right? So you're also bringing in more ideas, you're bringing in more stream of revenues for yourself as corporate. So I feel inclusion and diversity is a much needed conversation, and I'm glad that it's just shifting from a dinner table conversation to more serious impact, and there are more female CEOs that we are now seeing comparatively. Of course we are not there where we should be, or which is fair, but we are making leaps there.
So I think, just commenting on women in leadership, India is actually doing very well when we compare with other emerging economies.
True.
When we look at emerging economies like the BRICS countries, or we look at ASEAN countries, or we look at some of the other, developing countries, India is seeing a large number of women moving towards senior leadership in corporates. But the other area where I think there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm and also numbers starting to emerge is entrepreneurs. Women startup founders, women entrepreneurs, women designing for women, as you said, women solving problems for women's needs is starting to come up. What is also interesting is the power of the female consumer in India is being recognized, and you're seeing a lot of male founders designing for women's needs. One favorite example of mine is Arata. So it's a
beautiful brand. I've
Yeah.
been a consumer. I've been an influencer also. I don't like the word though, but I have been some sort of, an associate with them.
Exactly, right? So you have these male founders who are designing these curly hair products.
And look at
for
how
women.
brilliantly the brand has done in matter of
Yes.
just, I think, 3 years or so of their existence. Oh my God, they're in
Exactly.
so many countries now. Brilliant, yes.
So there are others like this, and they are all designing for women's requirements and needs, recognizing that women are the ones taking decisions when it comes to FMCG products, retail goods, hospitality choices. A lot of that spending is being driven by the woman consumer. And I think that is where the Indian economy really stands out. Having said that, there's a lot of inequality. There's rural markets which are obviously male dominated. But at least in some segments, the woman consumers' purchasing power is being recognized.
So it's also this another kind of gender equality coming in now, which is the digital gender inequality, right? So like my domestic help, she does not have a smartphone. And even if she does have, she would get a second-hand phone from the husband or something. She's not allowed to have, let's say, a Facebook on it.
Yes.
She's not allowed to share her picture or put her DP on the WhatsApp and things like that. So there's another oppression of women and their expression of
Yes.
themselves. Like this woman, young woman, loves to click pictures and all of that. She wants to put a video out there and stuff, but she cannot. Which the husband, who is probably earning 3 times less than what she is,
Yeah.
enjoys all the privileges. So this domain, have you been able to tap into conversations in this domain?
Yes,
Or some work
yes.
that you have done in this domain?
So in fact, during COVID, over the 2 years of COVID pandemic that we had, Nikore Associates, my think tank, we had about 100 interns, young interns, work with us, all women under the age of 21. And they were so passionate. They said, we want to actually talk to people on the ground and understand what is their biggest challenge during COVID, especially for women. I said, go for it. Let's do it. So we actually interviewed 105 organizations, women-led SHGs, self-help groups and NGOs and academics and experts. We interviewed them across 13 states. And through these conversations, the one major issue which came out was the gender digital divide. And what we learned was that during COVID, it became so much more amplified because the first thing was education. If your schooling has now shifted online and the girl child is being denied access to a laptop, a smartphone, a tablet, and she's not able to continue her education, then that has lifelong impacts on her earning ability.
If there is only one device at home and there is a girl and a boy, the girl would get it later.
Exactly.
than the
She
boy.
would not get it. Later ki baat hi nahi hai. There's so many families where because of, it's not that they want to discriminate against the girl per se, but they just don't have the money to buy 2 devices. So I think this was one of the major challenges that came out. The second issue was with women entrepreneurs. Placing their products online and being able to access online selling places, marketplaces, online access to finance, all of this, online payments, digital payments, all of this was too complex for many of the traditional women entrepreneurs. The sari I'm wearing today is probably a silk sari woven by a traditional, weaver somewhere in Tamil Nadu. That lady will not know how to sell this sari on Amazon or on Flipkart or on any other, service. And as a result, she only gets a small portion of the actual price of this sari. And we are seeing this in product after product, especially in, handmade goods, where women are some of the biggest artisans, biggest contributors. So this was the second issue. And the third issue is what you talked about, safety of women online and the fact that women are so much more likely to be harassed just for having social media profiles and just for speaking out on social media, which is technically supposed to be a safe space for anybody. So, when we are seeing all of this, and yet we are seeing the plans for digital economy, making digital economy
Everything
India,
digital, smart cities,
exactly,
and all of that. Where is inclusion?
Where is inclusion?
There in that space.
And we need a lot more push towards digital literacy of women. We need to have school level intervention starting now, to say that let's have digital literacy as a clear curriculum focus amongst rural women and rural girls as a thrust area. And we are not seeing that yet. We need to see more of that.
Speaking of this conversation, I am thinking of a time when my dadi, she told me that she started going to this school for elderly people, Praud Shiksha Kendra is what they used to call, and she started going there at the age of 65 or 70. She's 80, 85, 87 now. So she started going to this school, the literacy and the ability to write down your name on a simple check, because she was making money. She is a farmer, so she is able to sell her goods and have a bank account and all of that. So she learned that and the excitement of that. So I think, like you said, digital literacy needs to be now again brought in as a concept as basic as that.
Exactly.
Wherein you have a night school, or you have something where you invite these women or even the males who are not digitally equipped, because things are changing at such a fast pace, and to make it more and more inclusive, a world which is more inclusive, digital literacy has a big role to play. Education per se one, of course, but education in the form of digital literacy needs to really take the center seat now.
Yes, that's exactly what we need, and we need a government push, but we also need the private sector to come in. It cannot be just, this is the government's responsibility. It's a very easy thing to say, government should do this. But where is the CSR?
Are you seeing some CSR initiatives, those are working in this space of creating more and more inclusion?
Very little. I engaged with one of them. Actually, I was very lucky to work with this NGO in South Delhi. And, they're doing a lot of work on creating digital literacy awareness and also skills amongst young women from marginalized communities. They run a center. And at that center, girls from marginalized groups can come and they can learn how to use a computer, how to do digital accounting, bookkeeping, skills which can then help them get office jobs. And of course, they use a lot of, in fact, they are also learning how to do photography on mobile cameras so that they can actually become journalists. So, it's a real job-oriented training center, and it's called the Feminist Approach to Technology, that NGO. So I've worked with them for about 2 to 3 years. I'm now on their, ICC, the Internal Complaints Committee. But they are doing such a phenomenal job. I really hope that they are able to fundraise much more. And a lot of corporates are supporting them. But this is just one example. And they are only able to service 30, 40 girls in their, in their premises. We need many, many more examples like this. We need large non-government organizations to be empowered to deliver these services. It cannot be just the government. And I think it's very wrong for us to constantly keep asking or blaming the government for these things. It's important that private individuals, NGOs, and private sector firms take the responsibility of something like this. We don't need the government for that.
The question is also of how much of your privilege are you going to use for these causes. Inclusivity cannot come only by looking out for the government, what are their initiatives, or only to the CSR initiatives. Now, there are some of the brilliant CSR moves, those are happening. I work with corporates very closely. I do, get invited as a mentor for certain programs here and there. Yeah. So one of the programs that I recently did, that was with Ashish's foundation only. So that was some storytelling contest that they had done. And they had picked up some 25 young candidates from across India. These people under the age of 22, 23, my God, the potential, the fire, the drive. Absolutely. You and I are sitting here are talking about the passion and drive and all these conversations, but oh my God, with absolutely negligible resources.
Yeah.
The kind of power, passion, pride these people have to put their views out there, to really have that knack of digging out the real stories,
Correct.
to go to the downtrodden areas and really find these places, and you can see that they are working with a cause to make this world a more inclusive space, not just having a personal ambition. So I think all of us need to now sort of migrate from this very personal ambition or personal success led stories or lives to a more holistic approach towards life, where we are thinking of the community, the world that we are building together.
Yeah.
Because as long as that change is not going to come, I think these conversations will just be a part of only a few rooms in the country.
No, I totally agree with you. This entire, see, that is the ethos of India. The community, the family, how we are giving back to society. These are things which are ingrained in us from the word go. As students, as children, that's what we used to hear. Now, maybe the conversation has, as you said, shifted to this narrative of this person is very successful. Or when we look at some of the, most successful trending videos, they always talk about this guy, he achieved so much success. He made so much money. And I'm saying guy purposefully, because it's rarely a woman that is showcased in these kind of, capitalist stories. So I think you and I and others like us are out there speaking this, speaking this language of inclusivity, of building a wholesome community, so that the narrative can shift, the aspirations can change from just accumulating wealth to accumulating goodness and creating a community which is more sustainable, which is more environmentally sustainable, which is more inclusive, and that can actually bring more happiness. I mean, I look at Bhutan as an example always. That country, they don't even measure their GDP.
Level. Yeah.
They don't measure growth. They don't care about growth. They only measure gross national happiness.
And national happiness, national peace. One of the most peaceful countries in the world for a reason.
Exactly. So we need more of that.
Right. Sitting here talking about equality from the standpoint of a woman, I feel we are not even the most sort of oppressed gender. And what about the third gender? What about the non-binary? What about the people who are non-conformists? For them, they've got it even worse.
I've been asked this question many times because obviously I'm advocating for gender equality. So therefore, the question of other genders and all other genders, particularly the third gender, but also all other, as you said, non-binary individual always comes up. And my response is always, who am I to speak for them? I am a female. I identify as a woman. I have never had the experience that a transgender person can have. And I often think that, it's so incorrect that women speak for transgender people. I think that they should speak for themselves. We need a lot more voices. If I can somehow provide a platform through my think tank or through any other organization for them to speak, I would love to do that. And I'm very happy to openly, collaborate with many of them. We are in conversations with some of the queer groups. But I just feel so uncomfortable talking about their experience, though I've heard it and absorbed it, because
but it's not first hand.
It's not first hand.
So you feel like a pseudo commenting on it.
Exactly. I feel like I'm doing mansplaining in a sense, right? Like when a man tries to explain how you are feeling to you,
true,
I would feel that if I was doing that, so I would refrain from answering some of your points. But one thing that you raised on skill training, I really want to talk about that. India has amongst the lowest female labor force participation rates in the world even today. Now,
although we are doing better in the leadership's role, I was reading a report, we are at about 16-17% of
that's because of reservation.
Leaders. Yeah, that is also one of the contributing factors, because
Women
corporates have to justify that this is our equality equation in the company. That's also true.
Also because there is a regulation which says that you have to have at least one woman on your board. True. So all registered companies have to have a woman in their board, which is one of the reasons why they have to build a pipeline of women, coming up to the board level. But still, we have one of the lowest female labor force participation rates in the world. And one of the reasons for that, beyond the digital divide and the unpaid work which we talked about, is skill training. And the fact that there's a, in the short term skilling programs, you suddenly saw an influx of women as soon as this Skill India was started. But what was the one course that 99% of women were doing? And we've seen the data. So when I say 99%, I'm not just saying, oh, 99%. I'm saying 99.3% in the data. They were doing beauty services. They were doing skill training to become beauticians. Now, there's no harm. We all need beauticians. I love my beauticians. But at the same time, don't we want women to also become plumbers? Don't we want women to become electricians? Don't we want women to become truck drivers? We want a society where women can do any job, not just a job that's appropriate for them.
There's also a question of safety there. Once you get into professions like these, how safe are you? Just today morning I returned from Baku, and the question a friend of mine who's just here on the set also was asking me that, how do you feel? What was different there? One thing that I have seen is that the bare freedom to just be yourself and take a walk on the side of the road is just massive, and that is where you realize how much less you've got back home in terms of safety, in terms of equality, let alone these fancy conversations, just a right as basic as to walk on a street and just be yourself. Not be bothered by someone who's staring at you incessantly, not be bothered by someone hitting you. You're talking about a career of being a truck driver for a woman, of being a plumber and all of that. Where is the safety? How are we creating that? To encourage women to learn that as a skill, because see, there was a time when most percentage of engineers used to be men.
Yeah.
Now you see so many software engineers and the other engineers also are women. So it's not the lack of a technical bent of mind that women have, that they don't want to set foot into another careers. But I think it's also a concern for their families that they come from, that how safe are you going to be if you go out to do a plumbing job, or if you go out and be a truck driver and you're driving interstate. What is your safety?
Exactly.
So what's happening in that space? Are you doing some work there, or do you see some policies getting discussed for that?
I think there's a clear recognition amongst many of the governments, both at the central level and at the state level, that mobility is a key ingredient for facilitating women's participation in the labor force, as well as in education and skill training. At the end of the day, if a woman is not able to step out of her village, outside of her community, or even in a city outside a 5 or 6 kilometer radius safely, there's no way she can do a job. There's no way she can, fully contribute to society and to the economy. That's clear. It's recognized in the policy circles. The Nirbhaya Fund, which was set up in 2015. So we all remember the Nirbhaya incident that happened 10 years ago.
Very unfortunate.
Absolutely, it was terrifying.
Terrifying.
And the Nirbhaya Fund was set up in 2015 by the central government, kind of as a response to that, to set up safe city projects across the country. There have been many safe city projects that have been set up, but we need a lot more effort there.
What is the working mechanism of these setups? Are they only set up at a planning level, or do we see them in the execution level?
No, we see them.
Is it changing the...
It is. So some of the practical steps that we are seeing in cities, there are about 8 or 10 cities that have actually done these practical steps, like installing CCTVs in buses, installing CCTVs on traffic signals.
Have you seen the data which reports the decline in the adverse situations? Or
no, you see, the data will not show a decline. The data will actually show an increase in reporting.
Because now it's getting reported. It's not going unnoticed.
Exactly. So, in fact, for some years, I think for another decade or maybe even 2 decades, we should continue to aim at an increase in the number of cases. Because then only we will be able to dent the surface of the actual level of harassment. If you look at prevalence versus reporting, 95, there are polls which are done regularly by several NGOs which show that across different cities, whether it's Chennai where it's about 60% or Delhi where it's about 95%, women are saying we have been harassed on public transport or in public spaces. Now, if 95% of women are saying in Delhi that we were harassed on public transport, but the number of cases are in the thousands, then it shows you, right, that there's a large proportion, in fact, most of the cases that were not reported.
A city like Delhi that has a population of about 42 million, and nearly 45% of that is female.
Female.
Right?
And
And you
they're not
have
reporting.
cases in hundreds of thousands. It's just negligible.
They're not reporting. And why would they report? See, if you or I was harassed on the metro, would we report it?
I haven't reported. I have been harassed at so many places.
We would
I
not.
haven't.
Who will go through that hassle? What is it that will actually happen to the guy? You know, we won't think about it. But say if we had an app on our phones, and in that app we could just report that I was harassed at this location. I don't want any action to be taken, but I want it known that I was harassed on this location. Maybe because it creates a red dot somewhere and it warns other women that this area is unsafe. I would do it. And that is what a friend of mine has created with her app called Safety Pin. And you can actually download that app and just pinpoint that at this location I was harassed. And it gives you a map. You know, it gives you a map and you can download that and keep that with you for different cities that has actually been set up. So with data, with interventions around the Nirbhaya Fund, we can actually crowdsource this information and create safety maps and safety audits of cities so that we can increase the information to start with.
And I think it's also credible information if you're getting it through crowdsourcing.
Yes.
It's not AI generated or,
No.
PR fed or something like that.
No,
There's not
no.
bloated numbers. This
It's
is the
actual
actual
women.
genuine consumer using your app and reporting it, the on-ground thing directly.
Exactly.
Which is incredible.
And a lot of cities like Chennai has also got its own government. The Chennai police has got its app called the Kaval Udupi app. And in that app also you can report an instance, you can register a complaint, but you can choose to just report. And the police will mark it as a red area. That yes, incidents are happening over here. They are generating heat maps of, crimes against women. So with these initiatives, these tech-based initiatives, we are moving to a situation where we can enhance women's safety. But again, it's quite slow. We need to move much faster. Cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata can move much faster than others. Chennai is already doing a phenomenal job. And other cities can also, move to this level.
Conversations like these are going to directly impact the emotional well-being and the mental well-being of women.
Absolutely.
And also the third gender. For me to have an aim and to go out there to achieve that, there's a lot of inner processing of the things that is happening. See, there's an unsafety component that exists outside of me in the world, but there's also inner dialogue that you're constantly doing with yourself, where you don't feel safe, which is not directly because of the ecosystem that you are in. If we see the remarkable measures being taken in the outer space for us, I think this inner dialogue will also somewhere change.
I agree with you. So one thing that I noticed that's been changing for me. So when I started a lot of my research around gender equality, I was very angry with, the institutions, be it the government, be it private sector, be it even think tanks. I said, why is nobody doing anything, But over the years, as I've engaged more and more with the organizations, with the system, I've started to understand that it's not like people are opposed to these ideas. People are very open. People want to listen. They want to do more. Sometimes they are capacity constrained. Sometimes they are resource constrained. Sometimes they just don't have the idea, So if you go with your idea, if you engage with them, if you say, okay, we'll help you build the capacity, we'll help you bring in the resources, we'll give you these, new ways of doing things. People, even in these established institutions, especially government, are very open to making that change. And I feel really thankful as an Indian woman that my government is committed to gender equality, regardless of political party. All political parties in our country are pretty much committed to the idea of gender equality and to the principle of gender equality, which is something that it's scary that countries across the world are not. There are many.
The basic fiber of our country, uh, in fact, I would say the world, but I don't know the data, is changing towards making it a more susceptible place for women.
Yeah,
To,
it's actually quite scary that you're seeing, country after country coming out with small changes in their regulations and laws to make it harder to be a woman. I mean, the most stark
The
example
abortion.
is the US and the abortion situation, but there are other countries as well. I mean, we look at Iran, or we look at so many other countries where we are
Some
starting
South
to see.
African countries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're seeing it everywhere. So that way, I feel that we are in a very privileged position as Indians, where we don't have to fear the state
Coming onto you.
coming onto you as a woman, or even as a person of a third gender or other genders. Our scriptures have always, acknowledged gender diversity and celebrated gender diversity.
Celebrated rather.
So I think we have a very rich culture and heritage of gender diversity in our scriptures.
I think India has a very large role to play in the conversations that are about gender equality,
Yes.
that are about your emotional and mental well-being. Because I think as a community, as a country, the way we started out, all the scriptures that we have, the stories of mythology, that and other stories that we have grown up with,
Yeah.
they speak volumes about gender equality. They speak volumes about giving respect to the other gender,
Yes.
acknowledging the contribution that they bring into the relationship, to the ecosystem. So I think we have a large role to play, and we are going to be a gateway for the world to recognize this. And you have been a member and a part of UN-led initiatives also. So just take me through the world dynamics. How do you see equality, sustainability, the causes that you are championing now, how do they happen and are conquered in the world vis-a-vis India? Where do we
So,
stand?
I think there's been a huge shift. If I look at the last 10 or 12 years since I've been part of this system, earlier India used to be almost like a recipient country. People used to be coming here and saying, okay, we'd like to, take up
this
this
grant.
project or give this grant or technical. Now we are a best practice example in many areas. Circular economic development is one area where India is doing phenomenal work. Waste to energy generation, recycling, sustainable energy production. I mean, this is solar energy. These are areas where India is taking the lead and is becoming very clear. And even now with electric vehicles, India is going to be one of the first emerging economies that will see a large shift towards electric vehicles. I'm not counting China here because China is on a different, sort of trajectory and pace. But amongst the emerging economies, India is doing a phenomenal job. And I think many developing economies, global South economies are watching India to learn how they can make these kind of
And
transitions.
the way a lot of global forums have now come to India
Yes.
as their base country. I was hosting this Formula E racing event the other day. It's their first edition here in India. So it's the 9th edition globally, right?
Yeah.
And for the next 8 years, it is logged for India.
Yeah.
So the global community is also recognizing India as a birthplace of, or at least a nurturing ground for these ideas.
Exactly.
It's just exemplary now.
It's been phenomenal, and I think India has taken the lead when it comes to gender, because they have actually been actively contributing to UN Women. And in fact, our minister has spoken at several UN Women led conferences. The deputy executive director of UN Women is an Indian. She used to be my boss actually when I was working there for some time. And she's, leading from the front. So we are seeing India as now a global leader in several gender equality conversations, in several human rights conversations, several sustainability conversations. And I think this is just the start of India's leadership. I really think that, the next decade, 2 decades are going to be very strong for India's leadership.
Let's talk about sustainability also now that we've had the word coming up over and over again into this conversations of ours. So, for the better understanding of my viewers, explain to me sustainability as a concept and how do I contribute to the cause of sustainability?
It's so complex to explain sustainability, but I'm going to try.
It's one basic idea that has taken so many forms and
Yes.
shapes that it has become now a little confusing. So I want you to make it crystal clear for us and give me some actionable nuggets that I can start from tomorrow to contribute at an individual level.
So, very honestly, I think sustainable living is living within your means and being conscious of your consumption. It's very important. We all have cupboards full of things we don't need. We all have.
I feel absolutely guilty of the fact that I have been one of the contributors to that, but
Exactly.
it's
right?
unfortunate.
Yeah. But sustainability is also about consuming goods which are then produced using sustainable materials. Try to use less single use plastic. Try to use more, say a straw made of steel instead of a plastic straw.
Fast fashion.
Fast fashion.
Fast fashion industry is one of the largest industries to be contributing towards
Even electronics.
electronics.
I mean,
Massive
electronics
usage
recycling.
Correct.
So I think that around sustainability, there are two major actors, right? There are consumers, the end consumers like us. But then there are also corporations who are producing these goods and marketing them to us, and we are purchasing them, right? So I think there has to be action on both sides. Even on the supply side, we have to have a lot more action to make supply chains more sustainable. Maybe reduce the distance that goods need to travel to reach us.
There are small but significant shifts happening. I was a part of one of this smartphone launches recently, and the brand now talks about using 5% of their material as the sustainable or recyclable material,
Yes.
which is good to see. So, of course, we are not at the cusp of the ideal situation as of now, but we are inching our way closer to that, which leaves us with a lot of hope for a more sustainable future. And like I said, so many global forums now coming to India, and all of these forums, one topic that I find common is sustainability.
Absolutely.
So I think the only way you will create a shift or a change is by first opening the dialogue. So we are scratching the surface. Now, how deep, far along we go, that is something that we have to watch in the next 10 years to come.
No, I think we need to make some big shifts. For example, urban transport, public transport, moving towards public transport instead of using personal vehicles. This is a very important shift which can create immediate results, especially when it comes to pollution.
We will have to now create an infrastructure that supports that.
Yes.
You and I, let's say we want to use public transport, but does my infrastructure support?
No, it doesn't. We need better first and last mile connectivity. We need proper pavements where we can walk. I was in Singapore recently.
Or cycle, for that matter.
Yeah, cycle.
If I want to cycle to my workplace, do I have the infrastructure that supports that?
No, if you have this much traffic, you'll be killed.
True.
So I was in Singapore recently, and it rains constantly in Singapore, right? But at all of the footpaths and pathways and bus stations, they have covered. They have a covering. So you don't even have to take your umbrella out. You can just walk underneath a footpath which is covered, which has a roof. And it's an open roof, so you can still see the rain and you can see.
So you don't have to worry, how am I going to go to work today?
No.
Will I have to take my car out or
Absolutely
carpool
not.
with someone?
No. And the infrastructure is designed to the climate of the city. And we need much more climate responsive infrastructure development. Move towards public transport, move towards first and last mile connectivity, which is also safe for women.
And also the social consciousness of the society needs to increase at large. It could start from something as small as an action that you take in your kitchen. Let's say, for example, we all use ROs at our home now for clean water. Now, 70% of the water gets wasted. If you're filtering 10 liters of the water, you're wasting 30 liters of the water any which way in that process. An average consumption of a household having 4 members is about what? 25 liters of water, drinking water I'm talking about, the RO water,
Yeah.
drinking and cooking water. So for 25 liters of water that you're using in a day, you're wasting another 75. How do you recycle that? So one small thing that I have done at my home is that I collect all of that water, I put it in my washing machine, and I use that for using clothes. I encourage my house help to use that bucket water. There used to be just turning on the tap and washing your utensils and everything under that water. I tell her to not use that, and so these small little shift which are sort of your individual consciousness awakening and making that small shift that you can in your own ways adapt. Things like using organic stuff, using something which is made out of wood instead of plastic. These small shifts, I think, at an individual level also can contribute in a big way.
They add up, but they are not enough.
They are not enough.
And at the end of the day, why is it that we can't just, regulate the use of RO water? I mean, at the end of the day, if we had a law or a regulation that beyond this pH level, beyond this acidity level, we don't need to provide RO water.
Correct.
At this point, yes, RO filtration is required. At this level, RO filtration not required.
Well, I also feel that if we could integrate some sort of a system where your RO water is going back to your, let's say, a tank or something.
Yes.
If in a building we could make that connectivity for every home, then you don't have to make these individual efforts of, taking the bucket and asking the help to use that, where she feels a friction towards you now that, in the other houses, I'm not restricted to use this water like that. And why you ask me to use this water? Why do I have to carry buckets here and there? So these small shifts, I think, at an infrastructure level also can be made, which will make it a little more sustainable world. I feel so strongly for the cause of water because we come from a country where so many people sleep hungry, and they sleep water deprived, and there's poor quality of water for irrigation in the fields, and there's so much that is at the lacking level. We cannot afford to be making these mistakes in the name of comfort.
We cannot afford to be wasting water.
Yes.
You know that in Maharashtra there are villages where men marry multiple women because they become their water wives. As a woman because it's a woman's responsibility to collect water. So as the woman ages, she can't carry as much water, right? Typically a woman is carrying 40 to 45 liters of water. Each hand is about 20 liters. And she's carrying that over a distance of 5 to 6 or even 10 kilometers, depending on where the village is located. Now, as she ages, she cannot carry so much. So he marries another woman to carry the water.
This is absolutely mind-blowing for me.
So that the senior wife can have a junior wife to help with carrying water. I mean, this is the level of gendered discrimination when it comes to unpaid work, right? Just for carrying water in the village. And this is the level to which women are, looked at as just responsible for the unpaid work. Their only role is this.
This is mind-blowing for me to know that something like this I didn't even know.
It's called water wives.
Water wives.
And this is happening in Maharashtra. It may be happening in other states as well, but at this point, I'm only aware of Maharashtra. And this is happening in Africa also. This is happening in Latin America also, which is why you see innovations for collection of water, like, drums, rolling drums, etc., that Gates Foundation and others are funding. But that's not enough. We need wastewater recycling at scale. Like what you're talking about, the water which gets wasted, why can't we have a treatment plant for it?
Absolutely.
And each society in Gurgaon is actually mandated to have treatment plants. Many of them do, like my society has one. But that's still not enough because that's only a Gurgaon level regulation. We need India level regulations for domestic treatment of wastewater, sewage water, as well as industrial wastewater, which is getting just dumped into our rivers. In Singapore, it's a country which is actually water scarce. They used to import a lot of their drinking water from Malaysia. But in order to become self-sufficient, they started recycling their water. They do 3 recycling steps, including diffusing oxygen into the water at the end. And we are drinking that water. So when I was there recently, I was drinking it, and one of my colleagues said, "Oh my God, this is treated water that we are drinking. It's not fresh water." I said, "Listen, in the next few years, across the world, this technology is going to be the way in which we will be able to access clean and safe water if we keep on polluting our rivers like this. So, when it comes to sustainability, I feel like technology is now a twin of sustainability. We need more and more technological investment in climate resilience, and water recycling is just one example of it.
Technology anyway is a great enabler for anything, any change that you want to see in the world. So in the space of sustainability also, now we are having zero waste movie productions. We're having zero waste sustainability led concerts happening all across the globe. So I think the technological advancements and the shift that it is bringing in is accounted for a big role in this space.
Yeah.
Mitali, I'm so happy to have this conversation with you today because these conversations are particularly exciting for me because they are leading us towards a hopeful tomorrow.
Correct.
A future that we all want to see, a future that is safe for people of all genders, people that identify with whoever they want to be, the concept of individualism, the concept of having a more sustainable future, environment wise, choices wise for all of us. Now towards the closure, Mitali, take me through a 3-pointer list. What would be the top 3 things that I can start today to make this world more inclusive at my level?
I think I think the first thing we need to do is introspect. Introspect about our own unconscious biases. So even for me, it took a long time for me to sort of realize that there are multiple genders, that there are multiple experiences that we can have with our identity. And you know, recognizing and respecting people of all genders improves not only their but also your own mental health. So the first thing I would say is to introspect. The second thing I would say is to, you know, what you're already doing with your platform. And I'm sure there are so many listeners here who can also provide a platform to people with diverse voices. So just respecting and listening to diverse voices, it really just changes our perspective. And offering them representation, you know, just that you are not the standard typical voice. We want you to come and speak up and speak with us and engage with us in whatever work we are doing, you know. So the first is introspection, the second is respect and representation. And the third thing I think that we can all do is just create sustainable futures. We have to take actions in our small way to reduce our consumption a little bit. Not too much. We have to still consume. We will end up consuming. But let's be more conscious about our consumption. If we are just a little more conscious, if we focus more on recycling, if we focus more on circular economic principles, live our life, you know, by the principle of, okay, I have bought an outfit, but I'm going to wear it at least 35 to 40 times. You know, if I don't wear it 40 times, I'm not going to buy the next one. Very simple. This is, you know, something I do. I have worn this sari 8 times. I'm going to wear it another 22 times or 25 times until I buy my next one. Just be a conscious consumer and keep on, you know, giving yourself the gratification but delaying it a little bit also. So I think that these small actions can have a big impact.
I like the point that you said about being sustainable at your own individual level. Instead of just looking at the bigger rooms and the more influential people in the government, etc., to make a change for you, you have to take some measures at your individual level, which is where it starts. And another thing that I really feel can cause a lot of change here is active listening.
Yes.
There are so many voices all talking at once, but if you really can listen, absorb, process, that leads to introspection, that leads to you questioning your own individual measures that you might be taking in negative direction just because of lack of consciousness, just because of lack of awareness. So if you could do that, active listening, and especially if you are a person who is in a position of power, who is in a position where you could create some ripples of influence, change, decisions. I think active listening is a great place for us to start. To be more inclusive and diverse and sustainable economy, community, world at large.
Definitely, definitely, fully agree. It was just a recognition of the fact that, education is so important to your journey as a professional. Whether we are educated in India, UK, US, wherever, as long as we are coming back, we are giving back, and we are trying to do our best. I think it was great to have that recognition. And very honestly, just as an Indian going into the British Parliament and getting the award there, I had goosebumps.
I'm having goosebumps listening to your story about this.
I just loved it. It's
I'm
a great
sure.
experience.
I'm sure. See, a large part of work that you do, I'm sure it's not for getting some sort of a gratification at the end. You do it because individually, at a conscious level, you want to contribute towards something that is larger than you.
Yes.
That a place where you want to see change to come in. So, but these moments of gratification, these moments of acknowledgement, a pat on the back, sometimes does wonders to your own perspective and your own speed at which you do things. Then,
It's about just getting a little bit of a motivator. It's like we see you, we see the work you're doing, we see that there is an impact. It may be small, it may be limited to a particular radius and to a particular community or a particular city or a particular income bracket where you are being able to bring some change, but it is something. It is pushing that boundary even by 2% or 3%, but you're doing it and it's not unseen. You are seen.
to be heard could be one of the greatest motivators to you, for you to just keep going.
Yes.
When you are listened to, when you're heard, when your story and your efforts are seen and recognized, that gives you a push to just do it a little bit more better, with a little bit more
Absolutely.
focus, with a little bit more grit. And I wish you the best for all your endeavors, Mitali. Keep doing the amazing work that you're doing. And I would be very happy to contribute and collaborate on some of the projects that we could foreseeably do together. Like you said, I love the point that you mentioned about wearing an outfit 40 times, at least before buying the new one. And that is one learning that I'm taking from this episode. Although I've become a conscious shopper in the last 3-4 years. So back in 2020, I started using, I'm a student of yoga. I've studied yoga for about nearly 7 years now. I have done a bunch of courses. I've done my master's also, my second master's degree in yoga, because
Wow.
I love the subject. So one of the concepts that we have in yoga is aparigraha. What it means is non-hoarding. So that is where a lot of active questioning started to happen for me. That do I really need these 4-5 wardrobes, almiras full of clothes for myself, or is it just because of some trend or some peer pressure, or things because of social media? What is it that is, or my profession that I am in? It's a showbiz, led
Yes.
profession.
Yes.
So I started questioning a lot of my choices. I have been able to make some minute shifts there, but yes, a shift as significant as wearing it for the 40 times is something that I'm going to be taking as my learning from here, and try to be more sustainable, try to be more conscious of my choices, because I truly recognize that my choices, my individual choices, do leave a lasting impact on the planet. I'm really glad that you are leading by example. You are standing up for the things that you say are important. And I need more women, more people, more representation in all of these areas, so that we just have a better future, better world to live in for tomorrow.
And you are one of those women. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and providing this platform, providing this space to have such an open conversation, to think about the linkage between mental health and gender identity. It's such an important linkage. It's such an important connection to draw. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing.
That is very lovely of you to recognize, Mitali. But honestly, I feel that every topic that we can possibly think under the sun today is so directly related to your emotional well being and mental health, because everything that we are absorbing.
Yes.
These are all stories around us, right?
Yes.
What are stories? Stories are your inner translation of an incident that has happened or not happened, right? If something drastically negative has happened, I have an inner translation of it. And if something positive has happened, that too.
Yeah.
So this inner translation is giving a lot of meaning to whatever I'm exposed to.
Correct.
It might be so good, it might be so bad, but it's my translation that matters the most, because that is what is going to personalize this experience for me.
Correct.
So if we can somewhere magnify these inner translations through a lens, through a dialogue, through a topic like the journey within that I'm trying to take for myself and trying to showcase through stories like yours. If these conversations could take a center stage, if people could be more aware of the meaning that they give to the life, instead of working or letting life happen to them in an automatic manner, taking charge that, I define my life, I give the meaning to it. Can I give a meaning that works for me instead of pulling me down?
Yeah.
We give meaning to vulnerability, right? We feel that being vulnerable is a sign of, let's say, weakness. If I showcase my vulnerability, my insecurities, my fear, if I talk about them, I will be seen as less of. What is this? This is your inner dialogue. There are tons of examples out there where we have more respect, more love, more connectedness to the people who are vulnerable, who are showcasing their fear, who are okay to own their weaknesses on their sleeves. Yet, my inner translation is different. So can I magnify, amplify those conversations and tell everyone that, listen, this is just about tapping into this translation, which then gives you power instead of robs you of your power and your opportunity.
Yeah.
So that is the honest attempt with which I'm trying to, take these conversations forward. I'm just so blessed to have support of people like you who come along.
Absolutely. Wishing you, so much more success.
Thank you so much, Mitali. I wish you all the success for your endeavors, and let's make this world a better place for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Mitali Nikore. I am an economist and founder of youth-led think tank Nikore Associates. Watch me on the podcast The Journey Within by Shobha Rana. I'm very excited to share my journey with all of you. And please like, share and comment. We need to win, guys. We need to have better content winning, not the algorithms and the bots. So please like, share and comment. Thank you.